Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Allison Walker and I'll be talking today about how to use Esri's Data Interoperability extension to automate a couple of workflows between ArcGIS Online and your local file geodatabase. I'm pretty excited about this one. There's really some cool stuff to show, so please don't hesitate to ask questions as they come up. Use the GoToWebinar panel on your screen there to ask a question or use the chat. And I will do my best to keep an eye on that during the presentation. If I miss it during the presentation, I will be sure to address any questions that come up at the end. And if you have questions after the webinar is over, I've provided my email there, and you're welcome to reach out to me directly if needed. Oops. I want to cover some quick terminology before I get started so that we're all on the same page. When I refer to FME, I'm talking about the Data Interoperability extension. This extension is built on a software called FME by a company called Safe Software. Awesome company, great product, great support. I'm a big fan. I've referenced and recommended the extension before in the City of Twin Falls webinar where we use the Data Interop extension to migrate data into the local government geodatabase. You can integrate all types of data and make it do whatever you want. So if I say FME tool or FME extension, I'm talking about the Data Interop extension. Same thing for our purposes. A workspace is the main area where you build your FME tool. So I might refer to a workspace and I'm talking about the tool itself. The FME tool and the FME software, uses readers and writers, which are exactly what they sound like. So the reader is the original data that is pulled into the tool, and the writer is what writes the final output of the data after all of the operations are run. So in this scenario, there's a DXF that would be the reader, and a geodatabase and Oracle database would be writers. And finally, transformers, which is where the magic really happens in the FME tool, and you'll see why. There are endless possibilities and combinations and things you can do with their hundreds of transformers. I think close to 500 transformers, if not more now. We will use only a couple of those, a very precious few, in our demos here today. So when I was watching SAFE's webinar on the 2017 release, they used this quote, and magic seems to be their sort of marketing theme this year. And I just thought it was really perfect because what this software does really is like a magic trick. So that's Arthur C. Clarke. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think you'll feel that way at the end too. So I'm just going to jump right into the demos. There's a lot to show here. So let's just get started. So here I am in Arc Catalog. I have a new toolbox here that I've built, and I have a couple of tools. These are Spatial ETL tools or FME tools. So I have one here called Pull from AGOL, and if I click on Edit, then that will bring that up. And I have it open here in the background. So you can see my FME tool here, and I'm just going to kind of go through this piece by piece. So if I start over here on the left with the readers, I have two readers. I have my existing file geodatabase and my existing feature class. This is what lives on my desktop. So this is my sign feature class that lives in my file geodatabase locally on my computer. And then in ArcGIS Online, I have a feature class called Sign. This was published from the Sign geodatabase on my desktop. And this is a feature service that is used in a web map that I then use in Collector in order to collect data in the field. Now, my first transformer here is called Feature Merger. So what this does is it compares the data between the two readers. So I have my ArcGIS Online goes into the supplier, and then my file geodatabase locally goes into the requester. So it basically checks the supplier data against the existing data in the database, and then it does a few fancy things here. Depending on what it finds, it will output those into the next transformer. So if I look at the properties here, I can see that I am comparing the two. So I'm comparing the sign ID field in the requester with the sign ID field in the supplier, and you'll see how that works here in a second. So I'm going to compare both the attributes and the geometry. I want to update both. If we look at what it does, let's take a look at the first one here. So merged basically means that the feature exists in both the file geodatabase and the ArcGIS Online feature class, and then that goes out here into the update transformer on the next step. My unmerged requester means that it exists in the file geodatabase. I have a feature that exists there, but it does not exist in my ArcGIS Online feature service. I should fix that there. There we go. So that then means that it's been deleted. So I'm going to output that into my delete action on the next step there. And then I have an unused supplier, meaning that that exists in the online feature service. I have a new feature there, so that goes into the supplier, but it does not exist in the existing database. So that then comes out into this insert function, which means that it's going to be new. So delete, let's look at these then. This is my next set of transformers. So I'm using an attribute creator transformer, and I'm setting that to delete, and I'm using this special FME database operation attribute and setting the value to delete. That outputs straight into my writer. Then I'm using another attribute creator here. This is going to be for update. And I'll set that there. And then this one here is going to be for insert. So I'm using all of these transformers called attribute creator. And I'm using this special attribute. This is an FME operation, an FME database operation where I can set the value to insert. So if it went through the delete, then it just goes straight over into the sign. I don't care about it anymore. However, if it is in the update or insert section here, then I want to do something else. So I'm using this date time calculator transformer, which is one of the new ones from FME this year, or excuse me, one of the updated ones at least. It has some new functionality there available to us. So let's say that my signs need to be inspected every 3 years. So what I really want to do is calculate a field that tells me how long it's been since its last inspection. So if I look over here, let's look at the sign here. I'll expand that a little bit. I can see that in my writer, in my local geodatabase, I have a field called date inspected. That's being filled out in the field. So if I click on the settings here for this transformer, then I can see that my mode is set to calculate the interval between dates and times. I have some other options in there. I can add or subtract. I can do my own fancy expression. I just want to calculate the interval between the dates and the times. So if I come here, I can look and see that I'm going to use the start time as the date inspected. So when that was filled out, it calculated a date inspected, and I'm going to compare that against the date and time now as of today. And then it will calculate how many months it's been. And you can see that I have a lot of other options. I like months. And then it's going to spit that out into an attribute called last inspection, which I have here in my writer. Okay. So if I have these two going out into the date time calculator and then they spit out into the sign writer. Okay, let's test this. So let's see how it works. I am going to pull up Collector here on my phone. And I'm going to load up a web map. Here's my FME signs. So this is using the signs feature class that I had looked at earlier. This is hosted in ArcGIS Online. And we'll look at a quick little web map here. So let's add a new one. I'm going to add a new sign. And let's make it a merge left. There we go. There's the lane ends merge left. I'll use that one. I need to fill in the sign ID because remember that's what it's using in the transformer to compare the two. So I need to fill out my sign ID. And then I'll just quickly populate the rest of this so that it looks real-ish. That's not a construction sign. That is a warning sign. Okay, and we'll set the date inspected. I'm going to set it back a little bit just so that we can see what happens. So then we should be able to submit that. Oh wait, I have to put it on the map first. So I'm just going to digitize it up here just north of town so that we know which one it is when we look at it later. So I'm going to submit that now. Okay, so there it is. There's my new lane ends merge left sign. And now let's do another one. I'm going to come up here to the Shoshone area. I will zoom in. Let's update one. So I'm going to update this speed limit sign that's down here. So let's go ahead and edit that. I'm just going to edit, let's say that it's been replaced. It was in bad condition before, now it's new. So I'm going to change the date inspected to something more current so that it's no longer out of date. And I don't need to touch the months since last inspection. I'd probably actually hide that from the field if this were real so that they didn't even need to see that or worry about it. And go ahead and update. Okay, so that one's done, and then let's delete one. I see this bridge out here. Let's say that the bridge is back in and we've taken down the sign, and now we can remove that sign from our map. It's no longer there, so we'll delete that. Okay, so now that should be deleted. Perfect, and that's updated. So we've added one, we've updated one, and we've deleted a sign in collector in the field. So if we come back now to our FME tool, and just click on play. Let's just run this and see what happens. So you can see down at the bottom that's going through a whole bunch of stuff. It's checking into my ArcGIS Online account. It's pulling that feature service. It's comparing it against the other reader, going through all of its calculations, and then you can see what happens here. It shows on the file geodatabase it pulled in 52 existing features, and then it also pulled in 52 features from ArcGIS Online. That makes sense. I added one and deleted one, so I'm not surprised that they're the same. Now I can see that one got deleted. There was one unmerged requester, so that got pushed out into the delete, which then pushed over into the sign. I had 51 that did match, so I can see that there. They went into the update section. And then I had one unused supplier, one new one, so that's going to come down into the insert action down here. So that goes through the date time calculator, and then I have 52 signs that are then written into the writer. Okay, so now let's come over into the table. Let's just look at the sign. I see I have 52. Let's just look and see if it's actually there. I can see that my last inspection field has been all filled out. I can see how many months there were since the last inspection. And I can see my last feature down here at the bottom. I have all nulls for my lat, long, and altitude because I digitized that. I wasn't using GPS, so those didn't get filled out automatically. But that is my new feature. So let's look at it in ArcMap. Let's say that I have an inspection map that is symbolized this way so that I can look at it a little bit easier. So let's look at the properties here. I'm symbolizing this on the months since last inspection field, and I have some set to good, some set to due in the next 3 months, some set due in the next 30 days. This group here of 37 to 42 is overdue, and then anything higher than 43 months is set to more than 6 months overdue for its inspection. So when I look at the map, it's easy for me to tell people where they need to be going. So I should have a new one down here above Jerome. I should have an updated one up here south of Shoshone. And then I have this other one that was right there. That was the bridge out. That should be deleted. So if I just refresh the view on my map, now that everything's been updated with my tool, then yes, I can see that now I have a new one down here, new sign there. I have an updated one here. It's no longer red, it's green, and my bridge out one has been deleted. Let's just identify this one and make sure that in fact it was the one. Yep, lane ends merged left. That's the one that we just entered with the updated inspection date. Okay, so that's pretty cool in and of itself. I can have people out collecting data in the field, and I can just run a quick tool and automatically have everything updated. I can have the inspection date calculated. That's pretty nice all by itself, but let's take it a step further. Sorry about that. I was just choking there a little bit. Yes, this is being recorded. I had a question there. Thanks, Mike. Yes, this will be recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube site later. Okay, so we're taking it the next step. So let's say that in addition to how long it's been since the last inspection, I also want to know the elevation of the signs that I'm collecting. So when you're collecting data in Collector, you're getting 2D data. Yes, we can have the altitude populated in the field automatically using those auto-populate fields. However, that's calculating height above ellipsoid height in meters, which really doesn't mean much to me. I want mean sea level elevations, and I want that in feet. So Esri provides us with a nice little tool that we can use to do that. So I'm going to come in here. I have my Project Z model, and I'm going to edit that. That's what's provided by them, but you can see that I've just drug in my tool. So now since I have that Spatial ATL tool, I can just drag it right into the model builder, and I can just set that as a precondition. So that just needs to run before the Project Z tools run. So we have one of these is the recreate geometry. That's, like I said, from Esri. There's a little script there that basically turns your 2D data into 3D data using the automatically populated fields. And then we can run a project tool. So like I said, that's in height above ellipsoid and it's in meters. And I want that in my NAVD 88 in feet elevation, and I'll transform that using the geoid 12B projection. And then once that outputs to my new sign MSL, I'll go ahead and use the add XY coordinates, or in our case, add XYZ coordinates, that will add in that information into the attribute table where I actually want to see it. So let's just run this model real quick and we'll see what it does. So first you can see that it's running that FME tool. So I just drug that in. It's doing the same thing that it did before, pulling data down and mapping it out to where it needs to go. Recreate geometry, reproject my new 3D geometry, and then add the XY to my feature class. So let's just go look and see if that worked. I have my sign MSL feature class that was going to be the output of that model. And if I scroll over, yes, I can see I have my point Z now. I have my X, Y, and Z. And so there's the auto-populated field from the field in altitude in meters, and now that's been recalculated into feet so that I can see my elevation the way I want to see it. That makes more sense to me. So awesome, model worked great. Let's automate that. So I want to go ahead and export that to a Python script. I'm going to export my model, which I've already done here, and that lives there. And then I've just created a quick little batch file. And we can see it's very simple. I'm just saying execute Python on this script right here. Super simple little bat file. So let's check and see if that works. Let's test it. So I'm going to collect a new sign in Collector. This time I'll collect this added lane left. Again, I have to give it a sign ID and I have to give it an inspection date, but I'll sort of skip collecting the rest now. We're just doing a little test. So we'll set the inspection date, and actually I should give it a message so that we know which one this is. This is for our bat file test, so we'll know for sure that that's the one that came in. Okay, I will submit that. Done deal. Okay, now let's go back and let's run our little bat file. So when I double click on that, it runs the Python script, which is running the model that we were looking at earlier, runs the FME tool, and goes through its paces. It looks like it's working there, and here in a second, it should be finished. So now we can go look in Arc Catalog. Open that back up, and we'll take a look at the features. And if I scroll over, all the way over here and then all the way down to the bottom, yes, I can see that I have a new feature down here, and it should be the one that says this is for our bat file test. So that's the one I just collected. It's now in my database. It has the months since last inspection all calculated. That was just a couple days ago, so it's set to 0. And additionally, it has my Z value in mean sea level in feet. So maybe I want to automate that even further, right? I'm happy with how that works. Everything looks great. So I'm going to go ahead and just schedule a task. I'll just use Windows Scheduler and say that every night at midnight while I'm sleeping happily in my bed, it's going to run this little file. And that's that. Then when I come in the morning, automatically all of the data that was collected in Collector the day before will be downloaded and in my file geodatabase and have the months since last inspection calculated and have the proper Z value and mean sea level, and everything will be up to date and ready to go without me having to ever touch it again or ever mess with exporting data from ArcGIS Online and all that nonsense. I can just let it run itself every day. It's sort of like having a server basically that's just automatically updating my data. So can I go the other way? I'm just pulling data so far from ArcGIS Online. What if I want to go the other way? So sure, yeah, no problem. If I want to go in here, let's say I have a zoning map, or I'll use the web application. Let's say that this is shared with the public so that people can come in and they can check out what zone they're in anytime. I have not done a very good job cartographically on this map, but you get the idea. We'll pretend that this is a zoning map that's out there being used. So I'm going to then come in here to ArcMap, and let's say that we need to edit something. Okay, so if I come over and let's edit this funky shaped one over here. We'll edit this M. Let's say that this highway commercial zone is going away. That one's going to be deleted. And this one's going to get modified a little bit. And this, we'll save that one, this highway commercial zone here is getting expanded. We'll say it fills in the rest. Good enough. Okay, so I've made my edits locally on my desktop, but now I want to make sure that that's current up in ArcGIS Online in the web map as well. I always want that to be current, so I can come in here. I have my other tool here in my toolbox. So I have one that's pull from AGOL. Now I have one that's go to AGOL. So let's take a quick peek at that. So that opens up my FME workspace, and I can see in here that it's basically the same thing, except this time I have my file geodatabase again, and I have my online feature class, but this time I have them switched. So my online feature class is going to the requester, and my local is going to the supplier. So it's just going to check it in reverse. It's going to check basically what's on my desktop for anything that's new and updated or deleted, and push that through the same process. And then it's pushing out to a writer this time that's my online feature service. So last time my writer was my local file geodatabase. Now my writer is my ArcGIS Online feature service. So if I just run that, then you can see it's given me the same thing. I can see the count coming in there on the left, and then it pushes through all of its transformers and out to my zoning feature service in ArcGIS Online. So let's just go check our web map here that's public. If I refresh that, then we should see the updates, if it would ever catch up here. And there we go. So now, wow, that was a terrible edit. I've got a terrible little sliver right there, but you can see that that one feature was deleted and the other two have been modified, and that's been output to my web map. So I could do the same thing with that, right? I could then export that out to a Python script. I could put that into a quick little bat file, and then I could have that run every night. So I could just continue to make my updates throughout the day, whether that's in zoning or in parcels or whatever I happen to be updating and sharing with the public. And then overnight, it would just run its tools and the web maps would all be updated the next day when everybody came into work. Okay, so if you want some additional information, if you want to see what we're doing here at Frontier Precision, you can go out to our site, frontierprecision.com. There you can find your sales rep, you can find some GIS services, you can find support, you can find our blog, all that kind of stuff is out there. I also wanted to put in this link to SAFE's webinars, so if you go to www.safe.com/webinars, you can check out the cool stuff they're doing, and if you want to see what's new in 2017, add on the /unveiling-FME-2017 to the end. It's a really cool webinar. They have an awesome demo. Very neat stuff. And then there's my email address again, allison@frontierprecision.com. So if you have any questions for me afterwards, be sure to let me know. Let's see. Let's look at some of the questions. Let's see, can the push to AGOL be used as a shortcut in creating a collector project? That is a good question. I don't see why not, but well, when I use the writer, I already have an ArcGIS Online feature service set up. So that needs to be there and I need to find it already there in order to use it as a writer. So you can read to and write from ArcGIS Online feature services, but those would already need to be created. How did you get elevation data on a digitized point? I didn't. I don't know if you saw that in there, but on my digitized point, my lat and long were all, where did it come in? Now I'm curious, am I lying? Hang on a second, Brian, let me go look here. I have to wait for Art Catalog to open, so it'll just be another 27 minutes and I'll be right with you. Okay, let's look at it together. Let's see in my, okay, for real this time. Yeah, see this one was null. So there was one feature that I digitized and you can see that nothing came in there. It didn't record the lat long or the elevation. This last one that I did, I actually did use the GPS, so I didn't digitize that one. So sorry if that was confusing, but that one actually did use the GPS. And then it automatically filled out my lat long and elevation. And then the collector tool did the conversion for me into the Z value. Toolboxes, so I'm not quite sure I understand the question. You can email me afterwards if I don't answer this question properly. But you can create a toolbox anytime, right? Just by going to right-clicking on any folder and go New Toolbox. And then you can start building your stuff in there. And then because I have the FME tool installed, or the Data Interop extension, I can create that FME tool. So that comes with the extension. As far as this tool that I used, that comes from Esri. You can download the collector utilities. If I can be organized enough. Yeah, there we go. There's a collector utilities and there's a collector utils toolbox. And there's a bunch of stuff in there that you can use with collectors. So I just grabbed that Project Z model out of there and then modified it the way that I wanted it to be. So I'm not sure if one of those answered your question. If not, just get in touch with me later and I'd be happy to answer your question. Can this process be used with geoforms? Sure, because a geoform basically is just coming off of an ArcGIS Online feature class, right? So you have your feature class, you build a web map, and then you share that as an application and build your geoform. So if you then wanted to just download data every day into a local geodatabase from what's coming in on your geoform, that would work exactly the same way. I would just set up my reader as my ArcGIS Online feature class, and I'd set up my writer to be actually whatever format I wanted. I've been writing into geodatabases because GIS is what I'm interested in. But if you wanted that in some other format, maybe you wanted it all to go out into like a PDF format or something like that. What's awesome about FME software is that it can go from anything to anything. I mean, you could have CAD data, you could have Excel data, you can have ArcGIS Online data, local GIS data. You can go basically from any format you want to any other format you want. It really is like magic. I should have said ta-da at the end of it. Any changes to the process when using an SDE database? So if you have an SDE database and you have ArcGIS for server, then this isn't quite as necessary, right? This is more for those of us who don't have server. If you have server and you publish feature services that are just hosted on your own server, then data is automatically moving back and forth without you having to do any of this other fancy stuff. Now you could still use the FME extension if you wanted to have some data populated. So if you wanted to like calculate like we did the months since last inspection, or if you wanted to run it through a project tool or something like that in order to get MSL, then yes, you could go ahead and do the same thing, and there shouldn't be any difference between an SDE database and a local file geodatabase. In fact, we've done that on other projects before and gone to Oracle SDE databases to and from those in order to get what we wanted out of there. So that should work fine. But you wouldn't necessarily need to in all cases if you're hosting feature services on your server. A question about related tables in signs. Our signs are in a relational database on ArcGIS Online. Will this tool be able to handle related tables? That is an awesome question and something that I'm still working on and kind of glazed over on purpose because I have not yet had a lot of success in pulling related tables. It sort of just pulls data straight from the feature service and it kind of ignores some of the other relationships. Now that I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm still working on it for sure. So get in touch with me directly, and I can let you know some more details on that. And yes, the ID number that I'm entering is something unique that I set up. So I'm assuming that every sign that I set up has its own little ID number that I can look at. And hopefully you have something similar for all of your assets in the field. I tried to use the global ID so that it was automatically generated, but that didn't go too well. It didn't seem to really like it. If you don't have any ID set up, it can use the object ID, but as you well know, that those can sometimes change. So that's not always your best option. So just to make things run smoothly for my demo, I had set up that special sign ID that I then fill out in the field. The FME software, I don't know how much that is standalone. That's something you'd want to get in touch with SAFE so you can get their standalone software and do what we've done. I was using the data interoperability extension for ArcGIS, which you can purchase from Esri for their usual extension price. I'm pretty sure the list price is $2,500. So if you are interested in getting that, then you would just want to get in touch with your local Esri customer service rep, and they can hook you up with the data interoperability extension. If you want to go with the full-blown FME software and sort of work with it outside of GIS, which is possible too, then you can get in touch with SAFE software. Now, if you're just going to use the desktop version, then you're fine using the data interop extension, but they also have cloud-based software and server-based software where you can do a lot more automations. So if that's something you're interested in, I would definitely take a look and get in touch with SAFE directly if you're looking at FME server. Let's see, can FME pull data from the attribute table and create output? Oh, geoform. Wait. Oh, and create a form. Yeah, so you can go, like I was saying earlier, pretty much from anything to anything. So I guess it would depend on how you want that set up. We don't really use FME for creating schema. So if I want to create projects, then that's not really, I don't think, excuse me, conducive to what it does. And that's not to say it can't be done, but I think usually we have a pre-built schema. We have our data already built on both sides, and we just want to transform, or we have the outline or the schema built on both sides, and we just want to move the data between the two. How do you handle go to AGOL if there have been downloads for offline use? So I think you mean if people are out in the field and they're downloading data to collect data in the field, and then they sync at the end of the day. So yeah, you would definitely not want to be pushing up updated data and overwriting feature services in ArcGIS Online if you have people in the field who are out there collecting data. If they have data downloaded, then they won't be able to probably sync it, or you might get lucky and they can sync it, but probably half the time you're going to run into trouble. So that, I guess, is where the automation would come in. If you wanted to have things updated overnight, then that would be the best way to go when people are not out there and have things downloaded. I don't know if that answers the question. Maybe you were thinking of going the other way, in which case everything obviously would have to be synced. And a link for the extension. I don't know, if for me it's in my Esri.com. So if I go to my.esri.com and sign in there, then I can see it in my downloads. But I think that you actually have to have access to it first. So you'll probably want to get in touch with your Esri sales rep or your Esri customer service rep if you're interested in getting the extension. And then they'll be able to hook you up with that, and then you'll find it in your downloads. I don't think that it's out there available for download if you haven't asked for it in your downloads. It doesn't look like I have any other questions coming in there. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up then. Like I said, this